Hey everyone, welcome to another show of Your Path Does Not Define Your Future. And I'm loving all your feedback that I'm getting from you. And as promised, I said I would be doing some amazing interviews in September and October. And today is no exception. Today we have an amazing person that I know you're going to love. I know you're going to love what she's going to share with us. And we're going to learn how her past has either defined her future or not defined her future. So we'll find this out. So Rosie, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, all. How are you, Helen? Pleasure to
I'm
be here.
excellent. Yes, absolutely. And I love your artwork in the
Thank
background. You
you.
painted that yourself?
Thank you. Yes, it's all mine with a little combination of others, but I'm surrounded by color and joy.
Love it.
Thank
So
you.
tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, my full name is Rosario de Rivera. But I'm better known as Rosie. It's a little bit, Rosario de Rivera is a mouthful and it's artistic and, it fits the artwork. However, Rosie's fine. It's shorter. It's more fun. So I just moved down to Florida. I've been down here for about 10 months now. Previously, my history, I worked for Liz Claiborne back in the day. That went from like 1996 to about 2007. I ran their graphics department, so I was always in the art area of things. That's just, I come from an artistic family, so that was instilled in me. So I ran the Liz Claiborne graphics department, the studio, for that amount of time. And then from there, I moved to Dyson. I was with Dyson, the vacuum cleaner vacuum cleaner company for about a year. And then they closed up shop in New York and moved back to Chicago. This is a long story short.
So are you originally from Chicago or are you originally from New York?
I was born in Cuba. I came when I was 8 years old with my mother, leaving my father and my brothers behind in Cuba because my brothers were of military age, so they weren't allowed out. So someone had to stay with them. The separation wasn't about divorce or anything like that. It was just the fact the political situation in Cuba was horrible. My mother and father talked about it and they decided we need to get the girl out of here. So my mother took me, 8 years old. We left Cuba. We went to Spain. We lived in Spain for maybe 9 or 10 months. Then from there, we came to New York. We ended up living in the Bronx, very Italian neighborhood. It was about 1968. It was so funny because back in the day, the mob ruled certain neighborhoods. So we actually had to ask for permission to be allowed into this particular, neighborhood. Safest neighborhood in the Bronx, let me tell you. So, they were very welcoming, very, it was humble beginnings. So we lived in the Bronx for a while. Then, like maybe 10 years later, my father came and then we moved to New Jersey. There was a huge Cuban community in New Jersey, which my parents loved. Although it was wonderful in the Bronx, we craved more my parents. My parents craved that need for their own community. So we moved to New Jersey. We lived in Union City. We lived in West New York. Then from West New York, I moved to Hoboken, and then I moved back home a few times, and then I moved back to Hoboken, and then, I grew up, and
How did all of that moving around affect you?
Well, here's the thing that when my mother made the decision to move to New Jersey, I was going into senior year of high school. So that was extremely difficult for me. You build a relationship with your crew, for 3 years. And then at the last year where you've bonded with all these, and I went to an all girls school. So even more so, you bond with all these women, and then, at the end of the year, at the end of the third year, you're like, yeah, well, we're moving to New Jersey, and it was devastating to me. So my mother bought a car for me in order for me to get to, finish high school in the Bronx. And being a teenager, again, long story short, I went to a party one night and I totaled the car. In the middle. Yeah, exactly. Lessons, it's funny because I think back on it now, and at that time it was devastating. It was just devastating at 18, 19 years old. Oh my God. But it was a total lesson for me. So, and not only was that a lesson, she took it as well as possible. And she just said, if you think you're getting another car, you're crazy. Now you want to finish high school? Go ahead. So I would have to wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, get ready for school, take the bus to Port Authority, from Port Authority, take the train up to the Bronx and back. So my last year of high school was about more traveling than anything else. But wow. Again, lesson learned, she had provided something for me to make my life a little easier, and I threw it away, basically.
Right.
Teenage stuff. So so then that that ended, and so we moved to New Jersey, and I waited a lot of tables. I worked at Channel Lumber. I worked in Woolworth when
I used to love Woolworth. I used to love
God,
them.
It was the best. The best.
We had them in the UK as well. I used to go there every Saturday with my grandmothers and sit there and have tea, and then
in the cafeteria.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was so amazing.
Good. Yeah,
amazing.
It's great.
That would actually be a great concept to have now, but it's a bygone era.
It is. It is. So with all that traveling around and the fact that you didn't have your father and your brothers, there was just you and your mom, how was that being able to, your mother sounds like she was a strong woman and a good influence in certain areas for you. So how, as a woman from Cuba, finishing school, all that sort of thing, getting into the workforce, what were some of your challenges?
I have to say my greatest mentor was my mother. In Cuba, I mean, talk about switching roles. In Cuba, we lived a good life. My father, we weren't well off. We weren't rich or anything, but my father was an orchestra musician, and he also sold instruments. And my mother was a homemaker, and she made a little money on the side, sewing and making clothes and things like that. So when we came here, there was no father anymore, providing for the family. So my mother had to learn the language, figure out what to do to make money to survive with an 8-year-old. So when we got here to this wonderful country, because, honestly, I love the United States. It's God bless America and all that, and from the bottom of my heart. My mother found various jobs. I mean, she worked probably, at one time she had 3 jobs. Would leave early in the morning, would come home, check on me, will send me off to school and come check on me and go back. But, she figured it out. She made it work. And by the time my father got here, those roles had already been reversed. Mm-hmm. So, and my father was older than my mother. My father was about, I think maybe 10 years older than my mother. He was a little older than my mother. But, my mom had already learned the ways. So she had to put on her big girl panties on and figure out you know, what do I need to do here? So she took classes, she learned the language. She took a lot of abuse from people who, you know, who were abusive to her because she was Cuban, because she was a woman, because she didn't understand the language, because they just could. Many times she would come home crying, and how does an 8-year-old, 9-year-old at that point deal with something like that? You know, so I was her shoulder to cry on. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have anyone around us, so we were each other's balance, I guess. We just had each other. Um, so she figured it out. She made it work. When we first got here, we had to go on welfare because there was just no income, nothing coming in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
once once she got on her feet, you know, I remember as clear as day that she called them and said, "Look, I don't need this anymore. You can take me off. You know, I have a job. I'm working, and blah blah blah." But it's funny because I remember, you know, when you were on welfare back then, you weren't allowed to have a phone. You weren't allowed to have luxuries. So they would send an inspector to the house, and when that inspector was coming, you know, unplug the phone because at that time phones were plugged into a
We're in the
wall.
wall. Yeah, exactly.
So we'd unplug the phone, you know, we'd hide it under the bed and just ridiculous stuff like that. But you know, she stopped that and she just said, you know, we don't need this anymore. I can do this for myself and my daughter and thank you, but no longer need it. You know, and to me, I mean, I'm 62 right now and I don't remember much, but I remember that and you know, I just think who does that? Nobody does that.
So, so having gone through that, fast forward to your career days, and you owned your own business at one point
So,
also.
um, so fast forward, you know, my father came a few years later. My brothers still stayed behind. Um, they were already, you know, older. My father came, and you know, we moved to New Jersey. I went to college in New Jersey. I hated school, hated it, and I was just really doing it just because that's what they brought me here to do. But I'm not, you know, I'm not a college type. I'm not the studious type. I am more hands-on. Show me what to do and I'll do it. Teach me,
Mm-hmm.
show me. I'm a visual person. So for me to like, you know, sit there and listen to a class, it just knocks me out. But I did it. It took me 5 years, but I did it. Uh, so I got that diploma, blah blah blah, and you know I still kind of work. I never made such good money working as a bartender, wait tables and all that, but couldn't do it. I have a diploma now. Now I have to get a real job. So a friend of mine was working for Liz Claiborne at the time, big fashion company, and he was sort of a bigwig over there. And he said, you know, do you? And this was at the time that computers were just starting. And I was a little fascinated by computers. And he said to me, look, the graphics department is turning over. They're going to start, you know, bringing in computers and they're going to need a studio person to kind of, you know, keep an eye on things and manage it. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I got that job. I was there again from 96 to 2007. I started out even learning myself how to do the computers, and I built a graphic studio in that time. You know, I mean, in like 10 years, computers just blew out of the water. You know, it was
They
amazing
did. Mm-hmm.
stuff that was happening. So I did that, and that's how you know I got a real job. So I worked for Liz Claiborne. You know, you go from hanging out and waiting tables and you know in college life to okay, you gotta get a business suit. You know, you
Yeah.
have to dress
Uh-huh.
appropriately. You have to get up 6 in the morning. You have to be at work on time, 9 o'clock, 9 to 5, blah blah blah. But you know, It was a great time. I learned a lot at Liz Claiborne. Met a lot of wonderful people. However, I learned the good and the bad of corporate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were a lot of good people that I still keep in contact with, and then there were I don't know how to put it, but let's just say the not so nice people where you know, corporate rules, and if they say you did this and you didn't, you have to prove it.
Correct.
You know.
So how did you move into taking that, all of that experience, and you've had a lot of different experiences,
Yes.
taking all of those experiences that you've had and the life that you've lived and the life that you're now living, what would you say was your lesson to pass on to the viewers about how your past is or is not defining your future? You said you learned some lessons.
Oh my
you had
God.
some good people, you had some not so good people.
Yeah.
So what parts have you taken from a positive perspective into your life right now?
You know, when you're in it, when you're younger and you're going through things, you really absorb it. For me, you know, there's certain people, there's people whose stuff will bounce off of, and there's people who are sponges and will absorb all the negativity, and just, you can either crash and burn or say, hey, what am I doing with this? So I am a sponge. However, I am Mauda's daughter. My mother's name was Mauda. So, you know, going through all those ugly times that I was placed in, I was in a very dark place. You know, I was in a very dark place, and I started drinking and I started partying and doing all those ridiculous things. And really, you know, there just came a day that you have to just say, what? No, I'm done with this. And, you know, I mean, I went through a 12-step program. It didn't do anything. Again, for me, I can only speak for myself, and I can only tell you what worked for me. And what worked for me was going inside of myself, looking in that mirror inside and saying, you're a fool. You're a fool, because you were brought here to flourish. You were brought here to flourish. And what you're doing is you're killing yourself for nothing. You know, so all those bad times and all those events that took place, those negative events, I grabbed them and I just ran with them, you know. And I think my driving force was the fact that I could not and still to this day, I can't let my mother down. Although she's passed and she's on the other side, but she stands beside me all the time. So for me, the driving force is she did it. She came here with an 8-year-old. She left everything she loved behind. Who the hell are you to not do better than she did, you know? So was it easy? No, hell no, it wasn't easy. You know, it got to the point, you know, I left Liz Claiborne, again, Dyson, and then, you know, at that time the economy tanked. I lost my job. No, I didn't lose my job because I had left Dyson. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't leave Dyson. Dyson closed up their shop, and they offered me a job in Chicago. At the time, my mother was ill. I was not about to leave her, and I wasn't about to ship her to Chicago. And so I was out of a job. So now I go from corporate, used to working, you know, 9 to 5s, used to you know, doing my taxes every year, blah, 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 to nothing. Now it's like, okay, I'll just get another one because that's what I do. So 3 years, No prospects. The economy tanked. No prospects. No, nothing. Overqualified. The kids were coming out of college already knowing computers. I mean, way advanced. And this only happened in 3 years.
Yeah.
So I had to reinvent myself. And again, you asked me how my past has formed the person that I am. And of course, again, I say when you're in it, you're just going through life. You don't realize it, especially when you're younger. So now I have to reinvent myself. What do I know how to do? So I taught art to kids. That brought me a little money here and there. No big deal. I did translations because I'm bilingual. I did translations for the Social Security office in New Jersey, for the courts. I did everything. And all in the meantime, taking care of my mother, who was ill, and I was placing her in a nursing home. So just me. I was the only one that handled everything. So I had to reinvent myself. What am I going to do? I'm going to buy a hot dog cart. So I go, Craigslist, I look up carts. And again, I'm telling a very long story short, condensed version. I bought a little cart, and the day that I'm about to put it out, I didn't tell anybody because I wanted it to be a big surprise. What does Rosie have up her sleeve now? So the day that I'm about to put it out, my friend calls me and she's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "Guess what I did?" She's like, "What did you do?" I bought a hot dog cart, and I'm going to put it out, and I'm going to Hoboken, because Hoboken was the place in, Hoboken has a PATH train that goes from New Jersey to New York. Very popular, surrounded by bars. It's an amazing little town, which I lived in for like 15 years. Anyway, so she goes, "Oh, how did you get a permit for Hoboken?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, permit?" She's like, "You can't just put out a hot dog truck in the street." I'm like, who knew? I don't know. I've worked corporate all my life. What the hell do I know? So I'm like, okay, fine. Put the cart back. I go to City Hall. They're like, "You don't have any permits? We have 25 permits. They're given out at the beginning of the year. And after that, you never see them again." I'm like, oh my God. So now I spent my last $4,000 on this cart that I can't put out in the street. So I go home, I'm like devastated. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? I can't believe I did this. I didn't do any research. So I open up a map of Bergen County, New Jersey. I listed every single city hall and I started making cold calls. None of those towns had permits for a hot dog truck, except one, Englewood. So I'm like, I ran to Englewood, I fill out the forms, I'm all excited, and the woman says to me, "Well, okay, you can't just stay in one spot, right?" I'm like, "What do you mean? It's a hot dog cart. It's not an ice cream truck." She's like, "Oh, no, this is a peddler's license. You have to sell and move."
Oh my God.
"What do you mean sell and move? Like sell one hot dog and move to the next stop?" She says, "Yeah, basically like an ice cream truck." I'm like, oh my God. So at that time I hear a little voice. It was incredible. It was just like one boulder after stepping stones and stepping stones and stepping stones. So I hear a little voice go, "Just take it and then figure it out later." So license, whatever. So after that, I got written up in the papers. People were coming out in droves. And then I got a big, after that, I bought a bigger truck. I bought an actual truck and I named it Rosie's Weenie Wagon. So it was blue, it was colorful. It's as colorful as this stuff going on back here. So you can imagine, it was just like, you saw that thing coming and it was like, "Yeah, Rosie's Weenie Wagon, oh my God, blah, blah, blah." Huge hit, except that sometimes being bold and out there, you're better off being quiet and under the radar. So
Uh-huh.
since I was big and bold, there was a reporter that loved my story, and she came and she did a feature article on me, on the weenie wagon, on my, my journey and all that. And it came out in the Sunday paper front page because I
Wow.
had already had a spot. So now I have a spot. I'm not moving. Who's going to
Right.
tell me to move?
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, that Monday, the cops pull up. And I'm like, hey guys, because the cops would come and have hot dogs all the time. Like, hey guys, like, yeah, Rosie, we're not here for hot dogs. I was like, listen, I'm really sorry, but it came from the higher ups. You got to move. Okay, that was another struggle. Uh, the people of Englewood came out in droves in support of me. And then after that, that didn't work out. They placed me, this wonderful gentleman, who was so very kind to me, Parks Commissioner, placed me in a zoo, in the Van Saun Zoo up
Wow.
in Paramus. And that was just, it was just wonderful. I was surrounded by children. So a lot of fun. And then after that came the Snack Shack. And that was
So
that was an int-
you've done a lot of things to keep you interested, to keep you motivated, and to make sure that you're keeping your mother's positive legacy
Oh
moving
yeah.
forward. So just to finish up a couple of things. So first, how did you come to be doing all of this artwork now? And what would be the message, the lesson that you would pass on to our female viewers right now, having gone through what you've gone through, positive and negative, in your lifetime up to this moment?
I again, I look back on my journey now, and I'm able now. I guess it's all part of, the growing process. Um, I look back and everything, every single good, bad, every person that I've met, every person who's been not nice to me, every person who's been wonderful, all of it has brought me to who I am today. It's helped me make the decisions that I've made. It's pushed me. But that doesn't come by itself, you know? That's part of when you realize, and we all go through it, things happen to us that can either knock us, and it's your choice whether you stay down or not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's your own choice. It's not about, yeah, there's mental health has a lot to do with it, you know? I was on antidepressants for a long time, and then I just decided, why can't I do this on my own? And I weaned myself off. I'm not telling anybody to do that. That's not the thing to do. Check with your
Right.
doctors before you do anything like that, which I did. But, I went in deep, and, my decision based on my life's journey, took place about 2 years ago when I realized I was alone.
Mm-hmm.
The friends that supposedly were friends were more of acquaintances than anything else. And again, I'm thankful for those experiences because you learn by them. Everything that
Mm-hmm.
happens to you in your life, there's a reason for it, So when I made the decision about 2 years ago, I was just so unhappy. I was unhappy. I was overweight. Thank God that I had stopped drinking a long time ago, because, I would have probably drank myself to death and, and done all stupid stuff. But, I stopped drinking a long time ago because it just didn't make me feel good anymore. I wasn't feeling like I was feeling when I'd get drunk at 18. You know what I
Right.
mean? When you
No,
had your little
no.
posse and woohoo!
Yeah.
No, that feeling you get when you're 18, and period. Move on, leave it behind. And I am blessed that I was able to say, I don't want to do that anymore. And I move on. But there's a lot of people that can't. They need to help them. So
Correct.
when I made the decision, I shut everything negative out of my life. Anything or anyone, and this includes family, anyone who did not bring something positive to my life, you got to go. And I'm not talking about, fights or, knock down. No, just simply, you know what? This doesn't work for me. This does not work for my inner healing. My heart needs to feel good. So I try my best to surround myself with people who lift me up as opposed to people who bring me down. I listen to a lot of motivation, such as yourself. I mean, we spoke about this. I fill my life with Louise Hay, Abraham Hicks, and, Wayne Dyer. As I sit here painting, I listen to a lot of music because I love music, any type of music. But I also find myself, I have a need for it. I have a need to feel that no matter what you're going through, tomorrow's another day. And these people have gone through it, and they're pushing you, they're lifting you. Along with, I have about 3 very close friends who on this journey that I'm still on, that I started in 2020, have been there for me, unconditional, loving me, lifting me. 3 women who have meant the world to me, and they have journeys of their own. They have journeys of their own, and I'm inspired by them.
Everyone's got stories, and that's what we try to share here on the show, is the stories, so that people can be motivated by other people's stories and can understand that you can overcome anything that you're going through with the right support and with the right state of mind. And
but it's not going to come to you.
It's not. No, you've got to go out looking for it. Exactly. Right. So just to finish up, because you have that beautiful painting in the background there, tell us about that painting.
Well, let me show you something. These are pieces that I'm working on, and this piece behind me, this big flower painting here,
is beautiful.
Well, that was started in about 1996, something ridiculous like that. And it was my first oil painting that size. I don't do oil because oil paintings, although they're beautiful, the texture and the smell of the oil and the smell of the products is just like no other. But I hated it. In fact, I didn't even finish it, right? But of course, anybody and everybody, whoever looks at that, loves it. Yeah. Anybody who's come to my house, they're like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, it's not even finished. It's not. It's horrible. So it's been going here. It's gone everywhere with me. So finally, the other day, I'm standing here and I look at it and I go, you know what? You were loved by so many that I'm going to finish you. So I started, the white stuff that's on it is actually textured, some texture that I'm giving it. So this piece will be finished within the next year because it's been with me for so long that it's like, I have to do it justice.
See, there's meaning in that. There's absolute meaning in that. Yes. And you just said one of the defining things that I think from the conversation, one of the defining things is the painting was so loved, you had to finish it.
Yes.
And I think that's brilliant. So
yes.
This is how life evolves. And even though you didn't like it, you still carried it with you. So there
parallel universe.
Exactly. Absolutely
Yes.
right. You know, Rosie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Helen, it's a
You
joy to always speak to you.
Thank you. And you have got so much, but we just don't have time on the show for
Let's
every
do part
nugget that you
two.
have. And I was going to say, so we'll do part two, and
Love
you
that.
can other parts of your life as well. So I thank you today. The viewers, I hope you got something out of today. I'm sure you did, some little nuggets. We'd love your feedback in the comments and all that sort of thing. And if you've got people that you think are interesting and would want to be on the show, then drop me a line and then I can speak to them and see if we can get them on there. So this is Helen Vella signing off one more time and remembering that mindset is the key to transformation.